Hello, Windy.
Hello.
This is your idea. You tell us what we're doing.
So what we're doing is we're going to go through your spreadsheet, your squad depth spreadsheet, which I've always enjoyed, admired. It helps me to visualize where we are with our squad. And since we're approaching a transfer window, I thought it would be useful to see where we were at the end of the last transfer window and then perhaps plan forward and think about some of the key areas that might need addressing in the upcoming January transfer window.
All right. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to move you around on my screen. So you're in the middle now. You get to be front and center. So if we look at the last window, summer 2020, basically, the reason I started doing these, right, is because other people were doing them already. But I wasn't happy with how they did them because of me, partly. But because, like, it was very positional in the way of thinking. It was like, here's someone who can, here's our first choice left winger. Here's another guy who can play left wing. And I was like, okay, yes, that's useful from one angle. But like, what's more important than positions is roles, right? Like, if you think back to when Ericsson played for us week in, week out, it's like sometimes he'd play number 10, sometimes he'd play left, sometimes he'd play right, more right towards the end, sometimes he'd play deep, but it was important to get him in because he was our playmaker, right? So whether or not you could have, the occasions in which we played, other good players. When we played Sissoko on the right and Dele as a number 10 and Son on the left, it's like, okay, you've got all those positions covered, but like, who's controlling the tempo and stuff like that. So I wanted to think more about roles than just positions, breaking up sort of defensive midfield and box to box and that sort of thing. In the previous window before this, I don't have that one up here. In the previous window before this, instead of looking at left back and right back, I looked at defensive fullback and attacking fullback. And this is the important thing as well, is that like, this is from the manager's perspective. This is the way our current manager sees our team. It's all very well me saying, well, Dele's first choice because I really rate him. But if he's starting Lucas, then Lucas is the first 11 player. Because that's how it's useful to think about who we might want to bring in and all of that kind of stuff. And anything about like what I would do isn't really that relevant so much. Obviously, we had to do some sort of speculation towards, I'd like to bring this player in because he can fulfill this role, but we have to think about it from the base of Mourinho's perception of the team. So having said all of that, I kind of feel like things are very positional now. We don't have to do this way. We can get our little graphic up where you've got your little lineup builder and put a bunch of names in the list under the left wing, because I think that is very much the way that this squad is built now. So if we switch over to the Windy Workshop, I think we can fill it in, right? You've got your goalkeeper, you've got your centre back, left back, right back, defensive midfielder or your number 6. You've got your central midfielder, or your number 8, a defensive central midfielder, the defensively orientated 8, or to fit it in the box, CM. You've got your wingers. Now, you could say that we have like an attacking winger and a support winger, but I think that there's so much overlap between those roles. Essentially, like, you wouldn't want to use Son as your support winger. I think against Wolves, Son ended up playing our support winger role, and that was negative, and something that we want to avoid as much as possible. So I think it's easier just to say winger, but we want to make sure that we have 2 of them in our fast 11 because that's the way we play now. And then, of course, your striker. Is that everyone? Am I missing something?
Nope, you've got everything. Well, you've got AM, I suppose.
Of course.
10
and then
AM.
you've got your number 10. Let me get my number 10 in here. So this is the thing, is that I don't think he sort of says, well, we need to have a playmaker. So if, Dele plays as the number 10, then you need to have Lo Celso out wide. Well, we're not really seeing that kind of approach to things. So it's very positional. We could just do this as like a lineup graphic, but let's keep things going. So who's your goalkeeper, Chris?
Joe Hart.
Okay, yeah, Joe Hart, number 12.
But it's not about my opinion, it's about Jose Mourinho's opinion. So I think that for some reason Jose Mourinho believes that Hugo Lloris is still our best goalkeeper.
Yeah. Who are your starting centre-backs?
Joe Jose Mourinho's starting centre backs are Toby Alderweireld and
Yep.
Eric Dyer.
Yeah, that's what I reckon. Again, this is one where you could say, well, here are his right-sided, not necessarily right-footed. Here are his right-sided, but I think that, like, again, you could play Alderweireld on the left, even though he doesn't. Dyer and so on. Where's Rodon right now? Doesn't matter. Okay, you got your first choice left back.
Reguilon.
Where is Reguilon? Do you know what number these players are? My number knowledge is
It's
not very
3.
strong. Oh, that's simple. I was thinking way on down. Okay.
Yeah, we came dangerously close to playing a 1-11 against Wolves.
Ooh, the hardcores will be very pleased. Okay, first choice right back, slightly contentious maybe, but I think it's pretty clear that it's Aurier.
I think so.
Regardless of how anyone might feel about that, Doherty's obviously not having a great time. There's basically only one defensive midfielder. Where is he? Number 5.
Spoiler alert.
First choice central midfielder.
Sissoko.
Musa Sissoko. Your first choice number 10 is now Tanguy, brought in to play central midfield. Doesn't like it. Not a fan. Okay, our wingers, maybe things are a little up in the air right now, but I think it's until things are... Oh wow, I've copied the wrong player. How embarrassing. Yeah, I think until things are like definitively different, I think it's fair to say Son and Bergwijn are the first choice wingers. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a little up in the air right now, and that makes timing slightly difficult, but I think that's the way that it is. And then I reckon probably I would have to say Harry Kane is our first choice centre forward. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one.
So this is okay. Squad is where things get a little bit more debatable. So obviously, Joe Hart does appear to be our backup goalkeeper.
In the year of our Lord 2020.
In the year of our Lords 2020. Who would you say is our third choice centre back at this very moment in time?
Interesting. So I might have said that it was Joe Rodon, but then against Wolves, Sanchez and Ben Davis both played centre back.
That's a good point.
Both started at centre back.
So let's go. Let's say Davinson is third choice. And I mean, Rodon. The thing is that like Davinson will start second string games, but Rodon is on the bench for first string games. Yeah. So it's a kind of an equal sort of thing. I'm going to put Rodon in next, and then I will put Davies in as a Tanganga after those two. Do you think?
Yes.
Or do you think he's seen as more of a fullback? I don't think he is anymore.
So Mourinho spoke about him being more of a fullback and then played him as a centre back.
Classic. That's the good content. That's what we like to see. Let me just put Jedson in red. Okay, so then we've got both Foyt and Cameron Carter-Vickers out on loan. Is there anyone else I'm missing?
There's Fagan Walcott, but he's not really been in the reckoning this season, so I think it's probably worth not even including him.
Fair enough. Okay, so I've already put in our second choice left back as Ben Davies. There, Sirkin, who was
Sirkin's third choice as the youth option, and then Sessegnon out on loan.
Ah, yes, of course. I've forgotten Sessegnon, have I? Oh no, there he is. Okay, back up to Aurier is Doherty, and it's a little close between them, maybe. What else have we got going on at right back?
Well, Tanganga, I suppose, would be the third choice.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really stretch him across, but that's one you just have to sort of keep in your head, I guess. Okay. After that... Oh, wait, Jedson's our... Remember him? There he is.
By the time the video goes out, he might no longer be at the club.
Honestly, for his sake, I desperately hope that that's true, because it's obviously... Yeah. I was taking the piss out of it on Twitter, and then suddenly I started to feel bad, because like this is a young man's life. Yeah, it's a little sad. Anyway... It's such the thing is, I'm not taking the piss out of him. I'm taking the piss out of the decision to bring him into the club, the Mendes link to bringing an okay child. Harry Winks, I believe, is our backup defensive midfielder. Regardless of how you might feel about that, that's the way it is, Chris. I'm sorry.
I agree. And I don't feel great about it.
Okay. Do we have a third choice number 6, even in the depths of our... Oh, there he is. Oliver Skip.
Yeah, so Skip on loan as a 6. I wonder whether he would also be considered for the CM role.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of the case for Højbjerg, Winks, and Skip. Yeah. That, like, any
and
one
White,
of them.
I would say.
White, okay. So... Well, let's put him as an 8, I think. But he's probably not next in line. So after Sissoko, it's kind of the situation where really Højbjerg is a both option as a first 11 player. There he is. So back up to Sissoko with Winks and Skip sort of occupied more as number 6s.
So would you slot Lo Celso in here as one option?
Yeah, so I guess what we're doing is we're putting him as a combiney type as well, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
And then after that, we're talking about, is White out on loan, or is he just playing youth football?
He's just playing youth football at the moment. He's expected to go out on loan.
In this window, we think.
We think he could well go on loan this window, yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, once we've moved on from central midfield, we have our third choice, number 10. He goes by the name Bamidele Jermaine Ali. So this is the thing with like our constant whining about Dele's use, is that once it stops being so much about roles and is simply about positions, he just comes in third behind Ndombele and Lo Celso. As long as Ndombele and Lo Celso aren't playing central midfield, which we both think is, within the realms of reasonable. But if they're not, then Dele's third choice. And that's sort of the major thing here, isn't it? Okay.
Well, the other thing that could work in his favour is being seen as a winger as well, but he's just not. Mourinho hasn't ever used him as a winger, I don't think. It's only been as a 10.
Yeah. Let's move White down to youth. Yeah, he could play White. Okay, who do you think? Is it Mora or is it Bale or is it Lamela for our third choice winger?
I think it's Lamela.
I think it's Lamela at the moment. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of up in the air between the three of them, isn't it? You could put these in any order, and someone would complain. All right, let's go Lamela. I'll go with your decision, and then I'll put your Twitter at on the. I'll put
Lucas seems to have really dropped down the pecking order recently, doesn't he?
Do you think he's behind Bale now?
Maybe he is.
Hey, he gives the ball away a lot, which, as we know, is a crime against humanity. So we'll put Mora in third. I've still left Lloris up here. And then options to play behind Kane. Well, maybe we should be stretching Son across. But I think we've seen that once this season. Mm-hmm. Whereas at least Vinicius we've seen a handful of times. So I think we'll disregard the emergency option there, and we'll just say Vinicius is the backup forward. Not getting a huge amount of game time. How do you feel? I laid down a rule and said let's stop talking about Vinicius until he scores, and he has scored, so there's that. But like when I say scored, I sort of really mean more like is doing okay.
Yeah. Well, the problem is at the moment he's not getting on the bench, and the rumours seem to be that he is self-isolating or is isolating due to having tested positive. We're not 100% sure on that, but if that is the case, that would be a very obvious reason why he's not getting on the bench.
I mean, that's only most recently, rather than the general trend is that there's not been a huge amount of game time for him.
Yeah, and it's strange because I think he has done okay in the Europa League when he's been called upon. I think he's had a couple of games where I've been pretty impressed. One where I was quite unimpressed. But it's difficult against that standard of opposition. Like the teams we've been playing look pretty awful. So you kind of have high hopes, but then he's adjusting to a new set of teammates, playing football in a completely different style to what he's been accustomed to. There's a language barrier, etc., etc. So I'm happy to just give him a bit of time to get used to it. I was expecting him to be on the bench more than he has been, I must admit, and to come off the bench more than he has.
So, with that in mind, this is our squad. Where are we strong? Let's start positive. Where do we look good? Obviously, so just in sort of numbers of names. Like there's a lot of names under the centre back column, but that's not necessarily a great area for us. I'd argue that there's an argument to be made that we could put another name in there. We're still being linked with help me out here. Skriniar. So there's clearly some belief that we could do with more there. But where are we strong otherwise?
I still believe that we are strong in the number 10 and winger positions.
Yeah.
Based upon the way that Jose Mourinho sees the number 10 and wingers. I mean, I don't want Ndombele to be a number 10, but given that he is, and given that the Celso also is, that is an area of strength for us.
Yeah, I mean, if Dele is your third choice player, you're strong in that area, you know? Okay. Where else? So the wings, yeah. I mean, even though we're playing two at a time, and even though Bale's maybe not had the so far the season that we would have hoped for, still a lot of numbers there. And I think that Clark is a good young player, you know? I think that there's quite a bit of promise there. I think maybe people are writing him off a little already. But
I really like Clark. I think there's a lot to come from him. I'm excited.
Okay. Just going to stretch us out a little here, because I've given us way too much room on the screen. Okay. Where are we definitely weak?
Defensive midfield.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
We are a Højbjerg hamstring strain away from disaster.
Yeah. I think that's hard to argue with. Last time we spoke on this, you said a Skip back from loan. Would you recall him if it's possible for us to do that?
99% sure it's not possible, but if we could recall Skip, then I definitely would.
Okay. That leads to a more difficult question: is assuming that we can't recall Skip, should we be buying a number 6 this window?
It's such a nightmare, isn't it? Because you buy a number 6 to cover the 6 months that we need to cover the number 6 position for, and then you end up in a situation where Oliver Skip doesn't play next season. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Well, if we are willing to send him out on loan to a Premier League team next season, let's say Norwich go up, are we happy to send Skip there again for the season? Yeah, why not? If we've got adequate cover, I'm down with that idea. On that basis, perhaps we do buy number 6.
What we need is a 6-month contract for Esteban Cambiasso. It's a tricky one, isn't it? And like, if we're bringing someone in and we ditching Winks in the middle of a season, that's a risk in of its own. I don't know. I mean, give me an answer anyway.
I think I would buy a 6. I know that sounds sort of counterintuitive when I'm such a protector of our young players, but I think I would. I think we need to buy another holding midfielder so that we can rotate Højbjerg and also occasionally use Højbjerg alongside another defensive minded player.
Okay. And what would that mean for Winks in the immediate future?
So in Jose Mourinho's head, that means very bad things for Winks, and it probably means that he's leaving the club. In my mind, I would be keeping Winks, probably, and looking to shift to Soko. And that's based purely on age profile.
That's interesting.
I mean, I'm not averse. Don't get me wrong. I'm not averse to us selling Winks. It's not like a the end of the world either way, frankly. But I do feel that if we do move on to a different manager who has a different style next, a possession-based manager, for example, I think Winks would suit that a lot more than Sissoko, and I think we'll go back to quite enjoying Winks's style and abilities.
I think you've got rose-tinted glasses on there. I don't think Winks thrived under Pochettino, to be honest. He did he came through. He became a senior player. He established himself as Premier League level, but he didn't establish himself as top 4 level. He was part of our sort of famously weak midfield of Winks and Sissoko, and that doesn't lie entirely on Sissoko because Sissoko's literally playing now. Okay, Winks played the last game, but I think you like Winks and I like Winks, but I think you're being too kind to him for those reasons.
I still maintain that under Pochettino, if he'd had a holding midfielder next to him, we might have seen a different Harry Winks. But I am happy to accept that Winks will not become the player we hoped he would, and for him to move on in order for us to sign the number 6.
Okay. Yeah. Central midfield. How do you feel about central midfield? Sissoko first choice and Lo Celso back up with sort of an also option of Winks coming in and Højbjerg becoming the central midfielder.
I mean, we've spoken about it so many times, but it's just not what I would do. I just can't understand the logic of not at least trying Ndombele there. But given that that's where we are, I definitely feel like this is an area we could easily upgrade. Okay. I feel like it'll be that's why Sabitzer's being linked, I assume, to play the Sissoko role.
Here's what I want you to do, because at the moment, Windy, you've got your manager's hat on. I want you to take off your manager hat and put on your director of football hat, right? You can't control what happens on the pitch. You can't pick who starts. That's been done. Now that's been done, who do we buy and who do we sell?
I mean, if you're playing Football Manager, you look to move Sissoko on ASAP to China, and you buy a dynamic box-to-box midfielder who can do everything and won't cost the earth.
So do everything is interesting to me because what I'm thinking is, and we talked about this obviously already, but what I'm thinking is, instead of worrying too much about the Winks skip situation, you buy in, right? We've got Højbjerg, who is an 86. What you're doing is you're bringing a 68, right? You bring in Ibrahim Sangare, nice. You bring in Frank Anguissa, Yves Bissouma maybe, although I'm less keen. I like him, but I'm more excited about the other two. A player of that ilk, who the first thing they do is they take minutes from Sissoko. They gradually take his place over time, and then we can begin to talk about our other options. But they simultaneously replace Sissoko and provide cover for Højbjerg, and maybe through that means Winks starts to get a few minutes in a number 8 role or whatever else. I'm not too excited about that idea. This is why I haven't done my homework on Sabitzer yet, and I want to do that. We'll get Harry in. We'll do a video on that for the X subs. But if I accept what Harry says, which is that okay, he's sort of a wide 10, but he can also play the number 8 role. Okay, but what about coverage? For me, you're better off getting someone who can cover 6 and 8 than you are getting someone who can cover 8 and 10, because as you've already alluded to, we are rich with our quality we already have Lo Celso, right? And okay, injuries and everything else, I'm sure he'd be getting more minutes than he currently does. But it's, even if he's fully fit, it's slightly hard for him to take minutes from the current 11, because can he replace Sissoko's role? Yeah, for me he can, but maybe for Mourinho not 100%. So for me, I would want someone who's definitely a defensive box-to-box number 8, but who can also maybe cover Højbjerg's role rather than Sabitzer, Maybe I'm underrating. Maybe Sabitzer can literally do. Maybe he can do the lot. Maybe he's a Dele Alli in the box number 10 and an anchor at the base of midfield and everything in between. Because I haven't put the hours in with him yet. Maybe he just does everything. But I'm slightly confused with that link and the lack of links to the likes of Ibrahim Sangare. Got there eventually.
That is a very compelling argument, and to be honest, there are a glut of such players. I mean, it shouldn't be hard to recruit a player that can do the roles that you just described, which is a bonus because it means you don't have to break the bank to get someone in. It means there's so much supply that the prices shouldn't be crazy. Anguissa is really interesting. He's a really, really interesting player, and
Yeah.
so the thing with Anguissa, I think he would be expensive because he's coming from a fellow Premier League team.
Yep, in the middle of the season especially.
In the middle of the season, so he'd be overpriced. Same with Basuma. Either of them would be overpriced. The thing that holds me back more with Anguissa is this is the first time we're really seeing him have a sustained run and look good. Like we know he's been good before, but this is the first time that he's like actually been consistently good for a period of time. Would you therefore want to go and spend what would they ask, 30 million for him, perhaps more?
Yeah,
it's a bit of a gamble. So the cheaper option is to look abroad, to look to the foreign markets, the European markets, and try and find a player of a similar profile. But then you get the kind of they need time to settle thing, which we had with Ndombele, which we had with Lo Celso, and so then we're planning to next season. If you want someone now, if Daniel Levy is absolutely convinced that Spurs can push for the title this season, if he genuinely laps up everything Jose Mourinho says and thinks we can push for the title this season, then absolutely go and sign Anguissa. Just get that deal over the line. And that's an expensive deal, but it would give us a really strong chance of competing.
And if you aren't so confident?
Forward planning. I think, so going back to the director of football question, wearing the director of football hat, I think the conversation with Levy would be around how much we can get away with not fulfilling that role this season and just waiting for Skip to come back.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you want to try and have a go at can we count how many homegrown players we do and don't have, or are we going to stumble all over that or live on camera?
Gosh, we can have a go. I think we're all right, I think it's not too much of a problem at the moment because of the summer recruitment. Roden counts as homegrown, which helps.
Okay.
So to be honest, I'm not even sure if it's worthwhile because I think we're okay. I don't think we need to be too concerned, even if we are to sell Winks and Dele.
Okay, all right. I'll take your word for it, and we will. What I'm going to do next, maybe not immediately. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to start working on this sort of color depth chart, talking about the quality of the depth, sort of trying to quantify it a little bit. It's subjective, but it gives us something, and try to create. I'm looking on the wrong screen. Try to color code it. Give a subjective, quantitative rating. Come up with a sort of a positional representation of that, a little graphic. But we've done the graft here, which is placing the players based on how Mourinho seems to see things.